You're good.
Hear the bell and believe. Hours of operation. Monday to 9 till 5. Closed Mondays.
We're here!
It's a train!
Look at the train track!
Got a lot of these in England. The old train museums. And they all dress up in the dress of the time.
Look at the choo-choo train.
Is it just trains? Mainly, yeah. Visitor centre.
Yes, it's an old railway line.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they've got being sarcastic, but they all looked happy.
Not.
Gift shop. Ah, wasn't that far, was it?
You would just love to stay here, wouldn't you, and play?
I'll see you later. I'll see you later. You can stop here and play. I'm a jerk.
Along with the safety rules too. First of all, everybody must remain seated during the entire ride. Secondly, the restrooms on this train do not work. So please don't try to use them or we'll all get a big surprise. Now before we leave station, I'd like to mention that our train crew is made up of volunteers who donate their time and talents to keep the train running, and is Mr. Jerry. And doing double duty as both conductor and brakeman is Mr. Floyd Reed. The locomotive train today is Norfolk and Western engine number 620. It's a GP9 diesel electric built back in 1963. The coaches that we're riding in today vary.
Levi, are you excited? Are you excited?
I kept saying, it's an adventure.
Depot. Barber Junction Depot is celebrating its 117th anniversary this year. It was built in 1898. It was originally located 12 miles west of us over in the town of Barber and served as a passenger station from 1898 until 1968 when Southern Railway abandoned it. To preserve the building, former Rowan County Commissioner Hall Steele bought it. And in 1980, it was put on a big flatbed trailer system and hauled down here to Spencer Shops. In 1996, we had the building restored and reopened as our visitor center. Now, many of our passengers are not aware of this, but our little train ride here is considered a passenger-carrying short line by the Federal Railway Administration. And since that's the building where you would normally go to buy your tickets for this ride, we get to brag that Barber Junction Depot is still a functioning passenger station. Right now, it's undergoing a much-needed restoration job. So we finally got the money in to restore the building, and we're very happy about that. Now, in just a few minutes, we're going to reach the northern terminus of our ride. It's going to take a few moments, as I said. Meanwhile, if you look out the east side windows right now, you can see some of the famous trees and weeds of Spencer Shops. Actually, folks, on the other side of that foliage is the Norfolk Southern Main Line. The line is double track through the area, so numerous freight trains and at least 6 passenger trains use the tracks every day. You'll have a much better view of it once we reach the into these trees. Again, ladies and gentlemen. During our train ride, you're going to hear the engineer give a variety of signals using the horn up on the locomotive. A lot of passengers don't know what the signals mean, so I'll give you a quick rundown right now. If you ever hear 2 blasts on an engine's whistle, it means that a train is going to go forward. If you ever hear 3 blasts on an engine's whistle, it means that a train is going to back up. But there's another signal even more important than those. 2 long blasts, 1 short, then another long blast. Listen carefully for that signal because someday it could save your life. That's the signal that's heard every time a train approaches a crossing. It's the signal for automobile drivers and pedestrians alike to please don't try to beat the train across the tracks. You're not going to make it. For sandblasting freight cars and locomotives prior to painting. The black stationary steam engine located in front of the brown boxcar is called the mule winch. It was used to pull the equipment through the area. The tall silver tower held the sand that was used to scour the rolling stock, preparing it for a new coat of paint.
Go back there.
No, we're not going back.
Okay.
In just a few moments, we're going to ride by 2 big silver tanks. They're located on the east side of our train. Built in the 1920s, those 2 tanks held water for fighting fires here on the site. To fill those tanks up, water had to be pumped all the way from the Edkin River, and that's 4 miles north of us. Now, when we go by those 2 tanks, I hope you notice the little red brick building that's right beside them. Don't let its size fool you. That little building was essential here at Spencer Shops. It's called the Transformer House. Built in 1914, that little building housed the controls for all of the electrical power distribution here at the shops. I think you'll agree with me that's a really important job for such a small building. Well, in 1990, we found another important job for that little red brick building. And that's right, folks. Today it's the restrooms.
Now it's coming up there. Because these are the 2 tanks were built in the 1920s. And right next to it is
Back in 1911, the Master Mechanics building housed the office of the Master Mechanic, payroll clerk, office clerks, and the officials for the Danville Division of the Southern Railway. That building is just now here on the east side of our train. The next building in line, the big gray metal building, is believed to be the oldest building on site. It's called Warehouse Number 3, and it was built back in 1896. It served as the original Master Mechanic's office until the move in 1911. From that day to the door and repair the flues of a steam locomotive. A flue is a tube that allows heat and smoke from the fire to pass through the boiler, thereby heating the water to make the steam. There could be anywhere from 200 to 350 flues inside a steam locomotive's boiler. Smaller red brick building that's coming up. It's called the Oil House. Built in 1913, that building is so big on the inside, its basement alone housed 5 tanks, each capable of storing up to 57,000 gallons of oil. Every locomotive crew had to stop by here and pick up a supply of oil before going on a mainline run.
Look at all those trains. You see them all?
In just a few moments, we're going to be riding by a rather odd-looking concrete building over here on the east side of our train, the building with the tower on it. It's called the Sand House. It, too, was built in 1913. That building was used for drying, screening, and storing the sand that's used on the locomotives. Today, sand is still used for traction in wet or icy weather, when traveling up a steep grade, or even when pulling a heavy load from a complete standstill.
Otherwise, it's metal on metal.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to go through a fence line. When we do go through that fence line, we're actually leaving museum property and going out into the south yards. We're able to do that courtesy of the Norfolk Southern Railway, and believe me, without their cooperation and assistance, this ride would be a lot shorter. Animals destined for market would be taken off the trains to be fed and watered here. You see, there's a federal law going back to the 1890s that says you cannot carry animals by train for more than 24 hours at a time without stopping and taking the animals off for a minimum 5-hour rest break. Of course, that's for humane purposes. Today, generally speaking, livestock is no longer carried by train. Instead, trucks now carry the animals to market, so the pens were torn down. As long as I'm on the topic of trains and animals, there was another very interesting law on that same subject. It was called a blue law. This particular blue law was written in the year 1900, and it specifically stated that the railroads could not operate freight trains on Sundays unless animals needed to be moved, again, for humane purposes. Now, I don't mean to say those old-time Southern Railway workers were not above bending the rules now and then, but they did keep an old mule back up around Linwood. Yeah, they had a train coming in Saturday night, needed to be worked on and out first thing Monday morning. Well, they put that old mule on board the train so they could work with a clear conscience. Yes, ma'am, they were all livestock that day. The tracks in the south yard are all remained of the receiving classification tracks that once made up the huge yard here at Spencer. Today, this area is a staging area for the Salisbury Switcher. That's a local train that takes cars to private rail sidings of different companies such as Food Lion and Lowe's Home Improvement. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're now approaching the southern terminus of our ride. Once again, we're going to come to a complete stop and then reverse direction. So remember, it's important that everyone please remain seated.
How much ticket, Madam?
Yeah, I didn't get a return ticket.
What about?
Okay. That blew my mind too when I got on the Amtrak because I didn't ask for anything. They're going for a while before I asked.
Levi!
Yeah.
We were really close to that train.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're about to come to a stop in reverse direction, so please remain in your seats.
You having fun? Sit down. This is a train that we went on. This is a train that we went on.
Up in it.
Look!
It's like a roundabout, isn't it? What's the point of that?
That's a walking in here somewhere.
That's just